And I say that because I learned a long time ago in this ministry from Elder Williams and Pastor Hart that when you ask to do something, you do it. You don't get up making excuses. So, men, let this be an example for you. And I just thank God. So God will give you what to say. You know, I thank God, and my inspiration is going to come from a little different perspective on this morning, on this afternoon, rather. First of all, just honoring my pastor. A lot of you know how long I've been a part of this ministry. Since 1980, September of 1980, the Lord saved me in this ministry. 1983, I'm sorry. My mom had been a part of this ministry since the inception, and her and Pastor Harden and Sister Harden go way back, and Elder Williams to prior to him becoming a pastor. But I thank God because my own father, who was a deacon before God called him on in this ministry, my own father. My father was not in the home as I was being raised. He lived in Bakersfield. And my mom was raising us children basically, well, by herself. My dad would occasionally come and visit. Never heard my mom say a negative thing about my dad in all the years of her life. But me and my dad never had that really close relationship. Years later, my dad moved to Tucson, Arizona and stayed a while. Came from Tucson, I think, in about 1991, 92. And he came, and I've always been a proud, and I emphasize, proud mama's boy. Proud mama's boy. And when my dad came back, I know I felt my mama's heart double beat. And I said, okay. So I took my dad aside, and I said, Dad, I love you. I said, but if you even think about hurting my mama, I said, Dad, you ain't gonna even know I'm your son. And I meant that. I meant that about my mom. And me and my dad talked. He laughed at me. We talked. And our relationship blossomed and grew like never, ever before. He became a member of this ministry, became a deacon. My dad was always one that would speak what's on his mind. I remember we traveled to St. Louis, Missouri for my uncle's funeral. And we were in the airport. And my dad had never flown. He's in his late 60s, and he had never flown. And I didn't like flying. And we were in the airport. We had to stop over in Denver, Colorado. And I'm looking around and stuff. And I see somebody come running in and calling for me. It's my dad. And he's upset. And he's screaming at me. He's talking to me like I'm about 5 or 6 years old. Boy, don't you know you're going to make us late? This plane going to leave us. And I mean, just really just talking. Really. And I said, Lord, I just had to hold my peace. And I just took it. And I went like I was 5 or 6 years old. And he scolded me. And we got on the plane and went. But afterward, I learned that that's the relationship that God had given us, where I did not see myself greater than my father. And I said all of that as a precursor to say this. My mom raised 7 children. I was the second to the youngest. My sister Sandra is here. My mom raised us without fathers in the home. And my inspiration this morning is for mothers who are raising sons. I've heard people say that a woman cannot teach a boy to become a man. That's a lie. That's a lie. With God's help, yes, she can. Yes, she can. I'm an example. And I can validate my manhood with next to any man in this church. If you have a godly parent, God put male mentors in my life to make up the gap for what my mother could not do. And so I encourage the women that have family members, or you yourself might be raising a son, and you might feel the challenges of trying to develop that young son into a man. God will help you. I'm here to tell you that my uncle, who Pastor Hart knows, the same uncle whom we went to the funeral for, my uncle had been an evangelist for many, many years, Evangelist Bruce Porter. He was an example to me my entire life of what a father should be. My older brother was an example to me of how a father should be. And when I came a part of this ministry in 1983, this man sitting here just was the icing on the cake. But my mother put in me principles of manhood, of responsibility, principles of godly principles that I try to put into my children. And I encourage any female, any woman that's raising or attempting to raise a young child, I have raised a young boy, that you can do it. You can do it. Don't let no one tell you that you're not able, that you need to bring a man into your life or a man into your son's life. If you're going to bring a man into his life, you got to make sure it's a godly man. You got to make sure that his intentions, because men, I'm a man, thank God I'm saved, but men have sometimes bad intentions and bad motives. They'll pretend like they like your children, but they only doing that to get to you. And I know, if I heard my wife say before I married her, if you don't love my children, you can't deal with me. And that's the way it's supposed to be. But I thank God for the inspiration that I got through my mom, because if it wasn't for her guidance, I wouldn't be saved today. And many a days I heard her talk about this man that's sitting here, that she was guiding me in the direction of Pastor Harton all the time. She would boast about how good of a man he was. She used to call him Brother Hardy, way back at White Rose. But she would boast about how good of a man he was and how wonderful of a man he was. And I would drop her off on church on Sundays prior to getting saved, and Pastor Harden would come out to the car and invite me to church. And I said, okay, Pastor, and I'd drive off and go buy my weed. When the devil got you, he got you. But when God saved me in September of 1983, at that little old church that I heard Pastor Harden say, there used to be Wooden Shoe Liquor Store. When God saved me, God made a change in my life. And I thought I was a man. But when God filled me with the baptism of the Holy Ghost, then I knew that my manhood was really fulfilled. Because I found out, brothers, that you ain't really a man until you love God. When you learn how to love God, I tell you, that's when you really find out that your manhood has really came to pass. That your manhood has came to fruition. Because we only find out who we are as men through loving God, through loving Christ. And it goes deep, but I tell you, you know what? I thank God, and I didn't get up here to preach, but I thank God for this man sitting before me. You may not have seen, when we came over here, and I need to say this, I know I'm taking a little time. You didn't see me for a couple of weeks, but trust me, believe me when Elder Porter said, it had nothing to do with us losing that building. Absolutely nothing. I got full confidence in my pastor and co-pastor. Full confidence. This man is concerned about me making it to heaven. Bottom line. That's all I need to know. As far as I'm concerned, we should have doubled his salary. That's my strong opinion. When a person is concerned about you making it to heaven, second place is a long way down the list. Because as saints of God, our ultimate goal is making it to heaven. Ain't nothing else going to matter. God ain't going to look at our income or what our social status or how big the building was. All I want to hear is, well done, my good and faithful servant.